Okay, so here we are back to Nothing Gained But Glory from the Musket and Pike series. And this is the Battle of Warksow. Not Warsaw. It looks a little bit like Warsaw, but when you look at the countryside, you realize it's not Warsaw. Show you on the map where it is. It's near Stralsund, a key and very heavily fortified city that the Swedes held for the duration. And it's sitting on an island which would have severely, had this island completely fallen, and it almost did, would have severely undermined the position in Stralsund. It would have been very difficult to get supplies in, for example. So, what you had was a situation where the Danes did conquer almost the entire island, except for a particular strong point here. And then both sides more or less pulled back. The Danes just kind of screened that strong point, and the Swedes pulled their army out to help defend Stralsund. But then they filtered it back in, and after quickly overcoming whatever was screening the fort, they moved forward and met the main Danish army. We've got what turns out to be a kind of small battle. It's definitely one in which the Swedes have to attack. The victory points are skewed, again, heavily in the Danes' favor, and the Swedes historically did very, very well here. There's a few little special rules in this, not as many as in most, but one of which is, let's see, we got some ponds. These are impassable. That's cool. The slopes are all gentle, yet I still am taking some advice from the designer and putting things down in open order. Why? Because, well, they have to cross the stream, and to tell you the truth, you get kind of a free formation hit that way. Yeah, you take a formation hit if you cross in not open order, but then you're down a formation if the battle occurs. So open order definitely seems worthwhile whenever you're facing any kind of terrain. And that's something I just did not get about this game. Not just this one, but the entire series. So one thing you might want to take away from it is, yeah, he gave me a lot of advice because I'm screwing things up. But, you might want to look at it yourself. Over on the Board Game Geek, the entry for Nothing Gained But Glory. If you're a Musket and Pike fan, and you're like me and kind of slow about tactical, well, it's more about using the system to make the tactics that you have in mind work. Because I have the tactics in mind, but I just don't know how to get the guys through the terrain. Well, in this case, he had the answer. Okay. So what else do we have that's special here? The biggest special thing, two things. One, the coalition commander was killed by a lucky cannon shot, or by a cannon shot, however you want to put it. And the Danish army fell into disarray. After the cav were driven off, the infantry ended up surrendering. So there's some rules to help simulate that condition. If the commander is killed, there is no army commander after that, which there are other scenarios that have that. But here's the biggie. You can't get continuations, you can't get preemptions, and you can't change orders for the turn in which he dies and the next two turns. Well, that's a real easy way to get the default surrender or giving up the field rules, because if things end up in rally, they just can't get out of it at all. It's hard enough normally, but it becomes impossible. So the other one is to simulate how well the artillery did here. And they got some nice little rules for this. First of all, the artillery isn't linked to its wing as strictly as it normally would be. So there's actually a loose one here, and they can just connect attach themselves to another wing, not just the center wing. This is important because the center wing is probably going to move forward and be more of the anvil, because I don't think that the Danes are going to want to cross that stream. And then I have to use the cav to try to either drive the Danes towards the infantry or away so that I can try to outflank. And then the second one is the artillery cannot be sidestepped by cavalry. One of the rules in the game, cavalry, when they're hit down a line where they could, that's not cav, that's dragoons actually, but cavalry, when they're hit, say, down a line where they could move to their flank, can avoid a formation hit that way. And that's a really, really powerful defensive maneuver, or defensive attribute of cav in the system as a whole. If units are too tightly close together, it doesn't work anymore. Or if you hit them with an enfilade, it doesn't work. But normally those aren't really the conditions under which the cav are taking fire. All right, so I guess we'll start with this one. I'm kind of glad it's a short one because it's not particularly short, but it's a small battle. I'm kind of glad of that because I'm a little fatigued, not so much by the system, but more by these piles of games I keep ordering. I've got to stop myself. But this, I haven't looked at the rules yet, but this makes me very happy. It's a fantasy game by EWE, and I had been hoping to get it for a long time, and a number of other things, and I just have to stop buying, but I don't know how. I guess once I get Wilderness War. Okay. Well, things kind of started off bloody. The Swedes opened fire with their artillery. It didn't do anything. They crossed one unit across the stream. The Danes were able to counter. I mean, the Swedes weren't even charging. They were just on make ready. The Danes were able to charge it and ended up eliminating that unit, swinging over here. Then the Swedes were able to charge that, and I think I may have cheated. But anyway, the net effect is one Danish leader, one Danish cav, and one Swedish cav in the dead pile. Not me. And we're gonna see. Get a colonel for the Danes. There, find one. Just a random dude to replace him. It's no big loss, but the trade-off is one that the Swedes really can't afford. They're a little undermanned here compared to the Danes, as usual, and we'll see. Hopefully the rest of the battle won't be even trade-offs. Swedes had finished their move, moving the right wing cav, trying to cross the stream. They wanted to smash into things. Into the Danish left cav. They didn't quite manage it, and now we can see whether the Danes are able to take advantage. The fact the Swedes are in open order here. All the Danish units are yet to move because they were in a lower set of orders. And the Danes took advantage of that, of the fact the Swedes were in open order and just demolished them. I mean, it would have been the same if they had crossed the river and been formation shaken. Knocked two more Swedish cav off the map. One of their own guys pursued forward, but they commanded the infantry and stacked it with them. Not that that really did anything, it just happened. I get to see if there's a continuation there, and there will be. Okay, and that's the end of the first turn. And there's the overall position. There's very little left on the Swedish right flank. I don't know if they can possibly recover from the loss of two cav units over there. They're certainly heavily outnumbered over on that side. And over on the left flank, well, the Danes didn't get to move their right because they had lost the leader. But I'm not sure how much of an advantage the Swedes have. They do have the advantage of their infantry and cav coming across at the same time. They're probably going to want to pull this cav out of here. Of course, that may free up the Danish left to do something a little bit more exciting. The swamp provides a bit of a hindrance to the Danes' ability to just swing it around. The good defensive terrain, a nice hilltop, swampland, forest, etc., is now kind of getting in the Danes' way of capitalizing on the successes that they had early on. We'll see how it turns out. There's a lot of force right here, but I still think the Swedes are in a lot of trouble. Okay, after 2 turns here in Warksow, see the Swedish right disengaged, and the Danish left is actually trying to pursue them. We're looking at maybe swinging around, hitting the infantry, but the infantry and the cav have been able to push across the river, maintaining good formation. The Danish right and center more or less are standing steady. The cav formed up a little bit better in order because the one unit got chased away, but they chose not to intercept, as it were. So it's going to be kind of a tough straight-on melee there if the Swedes want to advance. They are bringing their guns up, so they may just position their artillery up here and just start trying to pound the Danes. There is a lot of time in this game for the small number of units, and the Swedes probably want to at least soften the Danish line up before they hit it. Well, so much happened in this third turn. I just played it through fast because I didn't want to take the breaks for videoing, and I only have so much time on this. Well, the Swedes sort of crossed in front of the Danes, who had already crossed the river. The Danes were stuck kind of reforming, and the Swedes have snuck in. It started to threaten the flank of the Danish army. Meanwhile, Danish infantry moved forward, starting to move the guns forward. The Swedish infantry moved forward, the guns came forward, and the Swedish cav snuck around to this side on the left flank, threatening the Danish right, and the Danish sent their cav to try to counter that. But then, and this is probably the biggest thing, the Danes came off the hill doing advancing fire, and we'll see. Ooh, this guy's got a route. 2, 3, 4. Taking the army leader with him. We see that it was sort of mixed results here. The Swedes took significant damage. The Danes actually got very lucky with some of their morale rolls coming forward, but they did see a break. The biggest thing of all, though, in one lucky shot, they managed to take out the army commander and the center wing leader for the Swedish army, and that is probably the biggest effect of the turn entirely. So I got to grab some new leaders and figure out what the hell is going on there.